All right, what's up? We're in my room. Um, so I guess I'm gonna be doing videos in my room now. My needing to travel to work is no longer a thing since I'm working from home, so that's cool. Um, yeah. So as always, I try to figure out what to talk about, something that hopefully will be useful, and I'm gonna try my best too from now on to make these videos short. So bear with me. But anyway, um, I figured out what I want to talk about. So I've had a couple of personal conversations and experiences that have made me realize what I'm gonna talk about more and more, and like the reality of it, let's say. So, you know, a lot of us want to, become or have, right? We want to be a certain type of person, we want to have certain type of things, so forth and so forth. I would it seems to me, and I can speak from personal experience as well, that one of the main reasons, I would argue, why many, maybe not all, but many people don't have what they want to have, or aren't the person they want to be and so forth, is because they are not doing the things that one would need to do to become and to have, right? I've talked about that before, but let me try to expand on it a bit. Um, yeah, so let me start with saying this. Yeah, okay. You got to be honest with yourself. Um, like really, like there are many people. I know I'm not the only one. There are many people who talk to themselves internally, right? Like when you do something you're not supposed to do, you speak to your conscience is what I'm pretty sure it is, right? Like when you tell yourself, for example, I'll use me as an example. I've told myself, either one, I'm not going to smoke weed anymore, or two, I'm just not going to smoke weed as much, whatever, right? And, I faltered a good handful of times in my decision to do that, unfortunately. But when I do, though, you know, I, I'm telling my internally, something's telling me, it's the spirit saying, what are you doing, man? Like, you're better than that, so forth and so forth, right? And that's a good thing, because that's what's kind of one thing I've noticed is, even though I do falter, I'm human. We all falter, and that's okay. That's just a part of it. I've noticed that in me listening to my conscience, my spirit, whatever you want to call it, I become better. I don't smoke weed as much, or I'm more controlling of it. I only smoke it when it makes sense to do so, so forth and so forth. And I don't, do it in a point in time where it's gonna affect my path, let's say, right? Okay, cool. That's just an example. Cool. And so you need to be honest with yourself. And one thing that I spoke about with a friend of mine was this. That friend was, coming to me talking about how they're struggling at this point in their life. They're not doing the things that they know they're supposed to do. They're not happy with this, with work, with that, so forth and so forth, right? Okay. Now, this friend has expressed to me many a times this problem. And so I obviously have gathered that this is an oncurring problem. Again, I have had oncurring problems as well, but the difference is their problem seems to be more impactful negatively, one, and then two, it seems to last longer than me. Like me, I'll smoke weed and then I'll regret it and I won't do it for a good long while, and then I'll do it again. So it's not it. There's a long period of time of me making that mistake again, and when I make that mistake, I make that mistake for a very short period of time, as short as I can, if avoiding as much as I possibly can. Right? Okay, cool. So I had a conversation with them and I said to them, hey, let me ask you something. What is your why as to, because this person has a lot of ambitious goals and dreams, as many of us do. And that's a great thing. That's a good thing. That is a human thing. And so I asked this person, I said, this friend of mine, I said, hey, let me ask you something. What what is your why? What is it that pushes you forward to move towards that goal of yours of becoming the person, doing the things, and so forth and so on? Like, what is the why? What pushes you? And they told me the why. I don't fully remember exactly what it was, but that wasn't the point though. They told me the why, and I went, okay, cool. And then I said, so let me ask you this. What would you say if I were to say to you that I don't believe your why is good enough? And they got a little like, what do you mean by that? Not rudely or nothing, but naturally they were like, hey, now what are you trying to say, right? Cool. And I said, well, let me,
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Stop. I wasn't talking to you. And so what I said was, look, again, as I stated, you're human, we're human, it's normal to falter. However, the problem is, with this friend of mine, I said to them, look, here's the problem though. When you falter, you linger in that faltering, whatever. You linger for a long period of time. 1. 2, you falter quite often, more often than I think is good. Now, again, you're human. But my argument to this person, to this friend, was I would argue that maybe the main reason, or part of the reason, whatever, I think it's the main, but who am I to say, that why you're not able to do the things and become the person to have what you want is because your why isn't good enough. And I remember, I just remember thinking to myself, yeah, sure, to the why. I was like, okay. It wasn't a bad why, but it was just a why that I went, okay. If that was my why, I wouldn't be able to push along, let's say. Now, that's the part that I'm saying you need to be honest with yourself, right? Like, really think, because if you're like committed to your why for whatever the reason may be, but that why is just not moving you along, you keep like, if your why is strong enough, I don't see how you can falter so much or falter so long. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. So our why is never going to be so strong that we'll never. I mean, actually, I would argue that potentially it could be for some people. Actually, I would argue that it isn't for me, unfortunately, not quite yet. But I plan on getting there. So that is something that I want to point out first and foremost, right? Okay, cool. Now, if again, you are a person who is faltering a lot or faltering for long periods of time and it's frustrating you and it's holding you back, what have you, really reconsider your why. Now, why works? I don't know. Everybody's is different. Now, mine is one that I will never change I don't believe I'll ever change because it's really, I've come a long way from who I was 2 years ago with this, which I've mentioned before. It's please God, serve people. In short, in simple, please God, short people, that's my why. If I can do that, boom, I'm on track. In doing in fulfilling my purpose, and that is creating out of the creativity that God planted in me, right? I'm not gonna go into the details of that, but cool. All right, cool. So here's the other thing. Again, a lot of people are doing things, right? A lot of people do. A lot of people work hard or strive towards something, what have you. Cool. And the goal of doing is to have. Naturally. All right, cool. I've said this before. One of the main problems, I believe, as to why so many people who do, and righteously even, I would say, depend on the individual, whatever, don't get what they want, is because they don't become. Now, here's what I mean by that. Okay. I work quite often on becoming. I try my best to listen to as many different types of individuals who are the type of person that I want to become. I read a lot of what I want to become or how to become what I want to become. I pay attention to other people that I go, ooh, you are doing something in a way that I want to do because I want to become like that. What have you. I do my best, as we all should do, naturally. But there are many people that aren't very focused on the becoming, you know? Like they don't really put the necessary, I would say, the necessary attention and effort to the becoming comparatively to the doing. Now, why is that more important? Okay, well, okay. I want to, just a very specific example. I want to be rich. I'm gonna be rich. As long as God allows it, I will be rich. Okay, cool. Well, I need to become a person that can be rich. So the question is, well, what is that person? Not a very simple answer, all right? So let me say that. But in my pursuit of, again, putting in the effort to becoming that as best as I can and ongoingly, ever more for the rest of my life, here's something I've noticed. At this point now, I can pretty confidently say I have a much better understanding of how, to some extent, not completely. Again, I'm ever for the rest of my life, I'm gonna keep learning on how to become, right? But I'm much better at understanding how rich people are and think. Let me use a very simple example. We went to a club, and this young guy, 23 years old, bought out one of the tables, and I mean, I was watching. I was there, DDing, right? That's designated drivers. I wasn't drinking. I was just hanging out, whatever. And and they were bringing bottles after bottles. A bunch of young kids, jits as I tend to call them. And at one point, one of my cousins, I was with two of my lady cousins, and one of them got to talking to one of the guys in the table, and we got invited in. Cool. From there, I met the guy who bought out the table, the guy who's like, the baller, right? And he intrigued me. He intrigued me because one, he was very young and he had a lot of money, and then two, he composed himself as very, mature and all that. I mean, you could still tell he was still 23 years old, so that energy was still there. But for 23, I was like, huh. Point being is this: I was conversing with him for quite some time and asking him questions, trying to understand how he got to where he is, the person he is and such, whatever. Here's the point I'm getting with that. And I can use other examples, but point being is, I knew, because I knew who I was 2 years ago and I know who I am now, I knew that because of what I've understood on the becoming part, because I've put in the effort on the becoming part, I was able to maintain a conversation with this guy. I was able to ask questions that caught his attention, that intrigued him, that brought him towards me, let's say, right? And I knew 2 years ago, yeah, no, that wasn't gonna happen. No, really, I was not I would have asked the most dumb questions that anybody would have just been like, okay, I don't want to be around this person anymore, naturally. Okay, so that's an example of me becoming for them. Now, let me use a different example of where I am the become and someone who isn't quite yet. Again, not to be disrespectful or anything. This is just an example that I hope makes sense to some extent. Okay. So it's important to become because, again, if you can become the person that can do the things, then you can have, right? And part of the reason why that's so important is because the chances of you getting to where you want to get to are a lot higher if you're well connected with the right people, right? I don't think anybody will argue that per se. Okay, well, the right people don't want to waste their time. The right people want to make sure that they surround themselves with the right people as well, right? Okay, cool. Well, if you're not the right people to them, they're not going to give you their time and energy, right? This person, that guy, that the 23-year-old, he gave me his time and energy. Why? Because I was the right person, I would say. Okay, cool. Now, okay. Remember, before I say what I'm going to say, be mindful of the fact that we always need to be respectful of others. We're all created in God's image. So just because you are becoming and you are, let's say, up here comparatively to, whatever, like I would not be the person that's going to look at a homeless person and no, that's so disrespectful. And anyways, but let's get that clear, okay? Cool. Now, this friend that I mentioned, that I said keeps faltering and all of that, after we had that conversation and I told this friend of mine what I said to them, sometime later, they called me. I was preoccupied at the time, but I called them back. Long story short, I told them I only have 15 minutes, and they were like, okay, cool. So we chatted up for 15 minutes. Now, the first thing this person started saying to me was this. They were saying, I am so happy that I don't have anybody, like relationship wise, right? I don't have anybody telling me what to do. I can do whatever I want. I have my own place, this and that, and that's all, all good, all cool. All right. But then they were like, and and because of that, I can like right now I'm eating on my bed. I'm eating, I forget what it was. I think it was junk food, but that's not the point. But whatever. I'm eating food on my bed and nobody can tell me that's bad or whatever, and I'm watching TV, I'm watching my favorite show, this and that and this. Okay, and that's fine. Now, that is fine if I'll say this instead. I would say that is not fine for somebody, this person, you, if this is you, if you are somebody who says all the time, I am going to become rich, I'm going to become successful, I am going to become a person who has their own business, this and that, who has big goals and ambitions, and then you spend your time eating on your bed, watching TV, I would argue that's not fine. Why are you doing that? How serious are you about this ambition of yours, about this goal of yours, about this dream of yours? How serious are you? Because the question would be then, all right, is this what you're doing benefiting you towards that? And the answer is no. I don't care how you argue, the answer is no. But if you, again, and there's plenty of people who are not that ambitious, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I have a problem with people who give a big talk but don't put in the work, right? Okay. So this friend, right, a really dear friend of mine, was telling me this. And at this point, I checked out internally. Like I did not, I was uninterested at that point. Because again, I felt, respectfully, okay? I felt, I don't want to give you my energy right now. Because if anything, you're taking my energy away. Like you're wasting my energy. Like if you're gonna call me and have a conversation, this is not things I want to conversate about. I'd rather do other things that are more beneficial to me than talk about nonsense. Respectfully, right? Okay. So here's what I said to this person, in hopes that it would put some things into perspective. So they said all of that, and I'm just listening, and I'm annoyed. I'm like, I don't care. I didn't say that to them, but it is what it is. And then I said, at some point, I was like, I gotta tell you, I'm so happy right now. And they were like, why? I'm like, well, you see, after I got done with work or whatever it was, I felt like I did a lot. I was very productive, and there's an edible that I gave to my mother. She has it. She's never gonna eat it, but she should. Anyway, different story. But I knew she had it, and I really wanted to eat it at that point because I said to myself at first, "Hey, Josue, you did a good job. You put in the work. Hey, go treat yourself. Go eat that edible. Enjoy it. You deserve it." But my conscience kicked in, and my conscience was like, "Look, hey." First of all, remember that conversation you had with that friend about your why and how that's going to drive you and keep you from doing the things you're not supposed to be doing that push you back from your goals? Yeah, that's what you're about to do right now. So go ahead if you want to, but why? Right? And I listened. And I was like, damn, no, you're right. And I really want, hey, again, I'm human. I really want it, but I was like, no, I can't do it. I just, no, I won't do it. And so I didn't. Instead, I got more work done. And that felt good though. When I finished the work, like I got more things done that I needed to get done. And I felt much more relieved for the rest of the evening. But it felt good. Like I actually felt content that I was able to have the willpower to be like, nah, even though I really, really want it, nah, it ain't it. That ain't it. Right? Cool. So I told this friend that. in hopes that they would get the hint of like, hey, what you're doing isn't it, but you do you, boo boo. And they were just quiet, and after that we briefly after that we hung up, not badly, but it was just kind of like quiet and awkward. So yeah, there was that. Here's the point though. In essence, I'm finishing up because I want to try to keep these videos under 25. If you're ambitious, if you have a goal, if you have a dream, if you're moving towards something that's bigger than you, yes, you have to do things. You have to put in work. But if you are not the person, if you have not become the person that when opportunity presents itself through your work, and you're not yet that person, your chances are lower, right? Again, opportunity was presented to me through that 23-year-old. Not that I think that's really going to be any much of an opportunity. That's just an example though. But that's the point though. Again, opportunities are presented through other people. Yes, you can create your own opportunities. Yes. But you have a better chance of getting to your goals with the help of others. I don't care what you say. Even if you're an introvert, like, learn how to be an extrovert. You can learn that. It's a skill. Don't say if you say it's not, fine. Tell yourself that, believe that, go ahead. See how that works out for you. I'm not saying be an extrovert, just know how to do it, right? Okay. Moral of the story is really work on, in your private time, when nobody's watching you, on understanding what it is that you need to become, what it is you need to understand, what it is you need to feel and comprehend as best as you can to become whatever it is that you want to become. A business owner, an actor, a writer, whatever. I mean, so many things, right? But you gotta do that. You gotta put the effort into the becoming. You have to. So many people don't, or do minimal effort on that. And part of that is cutting off things that you really want. I enjoy getting high. I enjoy being high. I enjoy it. But I know, for me at least, as a matter of fact, 100%, I know for most people too, it doesn't help me. If anything, it just makes me lazy, makes me fat. And yeah, that's not optimal. So yeah, think about your why. Make sure that's a good enough why, and really figure out why that's a good enough why, and work on your becoming, so that when you're doing and opportunity presents itself, you have more opportunities to have. So yeah, hopefully it was useful. Anyways, take care. God bless.